Of course Kostya and Kitty have so much tact that we don't feel it, but it can't go on. They'll have children, they won't be able to keep us, it's a drag on them as it is. How is Papa, who has hardly anything left for himself, to help us? So that I can't even bring the children up by myself, and may find it hard with the help of other people, at the cost of humiliation. Why, even if we suppose the greatest good luck, that the children don't die, and I bring them up somehow. At the very best they'll simply be decent people. That's all I can hope for. And to gain simply that, what agonies, what toil. One's whole life ruined. Again she recalled what the young peasant woman had said, and again she was revolted at the thought, but she could not help admitting that there was a grain of brutal truth in the words. Is it far now, Mihail? Darya Alexandrovna asked the counting-house clerk, to turn her mind from thoughts that were frightening her. From this village, they say, it's 5 miles. The carriage drove along the village street and onto a bridge. On the bridge was a crowd of peasant women with coils of ties for the sheaves on their shoulders, gaily and noisily chattering. They stood still on the bridge, staring inquisitively at the carriage. All the faces turned to Darya Alexandrovna looked to her healthy and happy, making her envious of their enjoyment of life. They're all living, they're all enjoying life, Darya Alexandrovna still mused when she had passed the peasant women and was driving uphill again at a trot, seated comfortably on the soft springs of the old carriage, while I, let out, as it were from prison, from the world of worries that fret me to death, am only looking about me now for an instant. They all live, those peasant women and my sister Natalia and Varenka and Anna, whom I am going to see all, but not I. And they attack Anna. What for? Am I any better? I have, anyway, a husband I love not as I should like to love him, still I do love him, while Anna never loved hers. How is she to blame? She wants to live. God has put that in our hearts. Very likely I should have done the same. Even to this day I don't feel sure I did right in listening to her at that terrible time when she came to me in Moscow. I ought then to have cast off my husband and have begun my life fresh. I might have loved and have been loved in reality. And is it any better as it is? I don't respect him. He's necessary to me. She thought about her husband, and I put up with him. Is that any better? At that time I could still have been admired, I had beauty left me still. Darya Alexandrovna pursued her thoughts, and she would have liked to look at herself in the looking-glass. She had a traveling looking-glass in her handbag, and she wanted to take it out, but looking at the backs of the coachman and the swaying counting-house clerk, she felt that she would be ashamed if either of them were to look round, and she did not take out the glass. But without looking in the glass, she thought that even now it was not too late, and she thought of Sergei Ivanovich, who was always particularly attentive to her, of Steva's good-hearted friend, Turovtsin, who had helped her nurse her children through the scarlatina, and was in love with her. And there was someone else, a quite young man, who her husband had told her it as a joke thought her more beautiful than either of her sisters. And the most passionate and impossible romances rose before Darya Alexandrovna's imagination. Anna did quite right, and certainly I shall never reproach her for it. She is happy, she makes another person happy, and she's not broken down as I am, but most likely just as she always was, bright, clever, open to every impression, thought Darya Alexandrovna, and a sly smile curved her lips, for, as she pondered on Anna's love affair, Darya Alexandrovna constructed on parallel lines an almost identical love affair for herself, with an imaginary composite figure, the ideal man who was in love with her. She, like Anna, confessed the whole affair to her husband. And the amazement and perplexity of Stepan Arkadyevitch at this avowal made her smile. In such daydreams she reached the turning of the high road that led to Vozdvizhenskoe. Chapter 17. The coachman pulled up his 4 horses and looked round to the right, to a field of rye, where some peasants were sitting on a cart. The counting-house clerk was just going to jump down, but on second thoughts he shouted peremptorily to the peasants instead, and beckoned to them to come up. The wind, that seemed to blow as they drove, dropped when the carriage stood still. Gadflies settled on the steaming horses that angrily shook them off. The metallic clank of a whetstone against a scythe, that came to them from the cart, ceased. One of the peasants got up and came towards the carriage. "Well, you're slow," the counting-house clerk shouted angrily to the peasant who was stepping slowly with his bare feet over the ruts of the rough dry road. "Come along, do." A curly-headed old man with a bit of bast tied round his hair, and his bent back dark with perspiration, came towards the carriage, quickening his steps, and took hold of the mudguard with his sunburnt hand. "Was it Visionsko, the manor house? The Count's?" he repeated. "Go on to the end of this track." Then turn to the left. Straight along the avenue and you'll come right upon it. "But whom do you want?" "The Count himself?" "Well, are they at home, my good man?" Darya Alexandrovna said vaguely, not knowing how to ask about Anna, even of this peasant. "At home for sure," said the peasant, shifting from one bare foot to the other, and leaving a distinct print of 5 toes and a heel in the dust. "Sure to be at home," he repeated, evidently eager to talk. "Only yesterday visitors arrived." "There's a sight of visitors come." "What do you want?" He turned round and called to a lad, who was shouting something to him from the cart. "Oh." "They all rode by here not long since, to look at a reaping machine. They'll be home by now."